Welcome to the Digital Media Lab here at Hub350. I have my next guest here, Jim Banting, Assistant Vice Principal at Queen's University. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jim. It's an exciting day, an opportunity for us to see some amazing partners come together and really just discuss the growth, not just of this hub, but also a variety of entities, tech, education, talent, all these things coming together in one place. So, of course, I'd love to know a little bit more about your background, as a tech entrepreneur, and how your role now plays into helping entrepreneurs.
Great. Well, thank you for having me. My entrepreneurial journey started partway through my PhD. Did a PhD in pharmacology at Queen's University. About halfway through my degree, the University Technology Transfer Office decided that some of the research I was working on might be worthwhile filing a patent. So I put in an invention disclosure statement, and they decided that they would take it on as a technology and file for patents on it. So that was one aspect of it. The other aspect was my supervisor was collaborating with other clinicians at the university who'd had complementary technology to the technology that came out of my PhD work. And the Tech Transfer Office decided that it was time to start a company bundling all these technologies together. So as I was graduating my PhD, being at the right place at the right time and saying, pick me, I'd love to figure out how to start a startup with everybody. I was given the chance to be the person on the ground to do the initial business planning, writing up the initial pitch cases to investors, helping get research set up at an incubator lab. And so that's how I got started, really being at the right place at the right time. It was a company that focused on vascular therapeutics, and we were able to raise a pre-seed round of financing. We did a Series A round of financing, and were able to grow and sell the company to a specialty pharma company that was based in California. So I've had a chance to do the full entrepreneurial cycle, and to do it right out of your PhD was just an amazing experience. So I could take the domain expertise I had learned as a grad student in the life sciences and pharmacology and cardiovascular research, and then along the way with the Tech Transfer Office and various other supports, learn the business side of the things as we went along.
Wow, that is amazing. I love these organic, very fluent ideas. And as you say, sure, right place at the right time, but it's also right idea at the right time, at the right place, with the right support, right? All these things coming together. So it seems like that all played a role in the success. And obviously it's something that you guide a lot of people through nowadays as well. But how would you say, has the landscape changed much from how it used to be to what it is now? And kind of how should either educational institutions or even entrepreneurs now navigate through that, right?
Sure. So that company was founded in the late 1990s, and I like to say that there was the Technology Transfer Office and the National Research Council's IRAP program, and really not much else. It was a time that startups were typically something you did when you couldn't find a job anywhere else. That wasn't the case for our startup, but 25 plus years ago, that was the mindset. And so comparing then to now, there's no better time as a graduate student, to start a startup, because there's all types of incubators, accelerators, support groups, programs that basically ensure you don't need to reinvent the wheel on some of the more practical business matters. So there's lots of online help for accounting. There's lots of ways to get educated on IP and have an IP strategy. And there's all kinds of funding opportunities to get small amounts of money to start getting proof of concept that move you down the path to make your company and technology attractive to the venture capital community.
That's amazing. And I mean, that kind of brings me to the next question, was like, what is Queen's University doing now to support entrepreneurship and innovation? It really touches a lot on what you just said, right?
It is. At Queen's, we're in the VP Research Office, so we are all about supporting research, partnerships, and innovation. So it's those three things. But a lot of the work we do on partnerships and innovation translate into research. For example, a lot of the major funding opportunities nowadays really want the researchers to talk about what the benefit to Canada is in their proposals. And they want to understand what the commercial potentials could be. So we find our office getting involved in helping writing those proposals to try and frame not only the commercial understanding, but also the potential benefits to Canada, which are often a new spin-off company, or the development of highly qualified personnel coming out of the lab, or opportunities for students to learn and become educated and hopefully stay in Canada and have their careers in our country in either a deep technology sector or the life science sector, whatever discipline they came out of. And so we offer a range of support. We offer workshops for early career researchers, faculty members, and graduate students. They can learn about partnering intellectual property and commercialization. Hopefully for graduate students, we meet with them early on in their thesis so that they understand the language and they can understand what the frame of reference might be from an industry partner or a venture capitalist. So at the beginning of their thesis, they might be able to alter their plans a little bit to arrive at the end point with some more interesting outcomes relative to going into a research project without thinking about how a partner would look at this, or how a venture capital would look at this, or how even an end user in the marketplace would look at this. You know, the example I always use is if you're a chemistry student developing a new green, clean tech process, you probably shouldn't include in your recipe a chemical that's banned in Europe, for example. So we run those workshops, and then we also provide support in terms of incubator and accelerator programs. So companies can come in and stay for a period of time, sometimes they're 6 weeks, sometimes it's longer, to get coached and have mentorship through some of the key earlier inflection points that startups need to have, which is defining your intellectual property, making sure you've got an IP strategy, making sure you're focused on who your customers are. A lot of customer discovery happens, and making sure companies iterate quickly to find that value proposition. We always say in business nowadays, you want to be a painkiller, not a vitamin, so make sure you're developing a product that your users really find as a pain point and that they're willing to pay for it.
Wow, I love it. That's a lot of good things. And there's so many nuances, and I find what's wonderful is that you engage in the early stages where companies, like, if they know those pain points from the beginning, if they know, those patent specific details in the beginning, so, it gives them some sustainability so that they don't get, 80% down the line and they realize, oh man, if we just knew, I would be, moving so much faster, right? So I love that. I love the fact that you get engaged earlier and really spend the time to kind of like break down where does they want to go, where the real issues are. And as you say, kind of learn from previous mentors and previous businesses and of course entrepreneurs like yourself.
Yeah, we try and focus on the fundamentals of intellectual property, knowing the basics. If you make a disclosure in the public domain, you limit your ability to file patents from a global perspective. So, those relatively simple things, but if you haven't come across it and you don't know it, then it can be an impediment. So a lot of IP workshops. In many ways, I see offices like ours as the Google Translate between the academic research community and the outside world, whether that's industry, venture capitals, because the two worlds do speak different languages. There's no reason a graduate student, for example, would be exposed to what a confidentiality agreement is, or a license agreement, or an option agreement. And so giving them that lexicon and understanding, it can help you. We coach students that when you're going to a conference and walking up to a poster from somebody at industry, learn to talk to them, learn about what their department's all about, what are they responsible for, what are their challenges, so that you can start to understand how industry works. We run into some challenges, I think, on perception, which is, a researcher can go to company A, say it's a big Fortune 500 company, say, your annual revenue's in the billions of dollars, certainly you can find some money to do research in our lab. Well, we teach them that that's really, at the end of the day, everybody has a budget, and even though the rolled up top number might be billions of dollars, there's somebody in that company that has responsibility for that budget, and as a researcher, you need to meet with them, get to know them, understand how they make decisions, and basically present them a compelling opportunity from a research perspective that they're willing to spend on your opportunity and not something they'd already planned to do. So really just a basic understanding of how the corporate world and how partners work, to give them a real sense of how to position their research, because they are usually deep domain expertise in the question that they're asking, and it's how do they take that value and make it relevant to the outside world.
Wow. That's fascinating. I love that Google Translate. I love that, because that is sometimes all you need. Just that little, that's all I need. That just, wow, that light bulb goes off and go, man, that is life-changing, not just on the idea, but also where this could actually go, the potential and the opportunities, right? So now I'm clear, obviously there's many cases, that's kind of emerged out of Queen's University's programs, but maybe something that really kind of stands out for you as an example of, maybe one of those situations or one of those companies?
Sure, let me give you two quick examples. One is a longer term example. Somewhere around 2012, out of the Department of Physics came an invention disclosure related to a novel technology to help understand how welding happens in the advanced manufacturing sector. Previously, my understanding is if you made a part in the aviation industry, you'd have to make 50 of those parts and then go back and destroy a couple of them to see if the welding you'd done was quality. This company figured out for laser welding applications how to shine a second laser basically at the same time you're doing the weld, so you can get a quality assessment in real time, so that by the time the weld's done, the second laser has given you an idea of the quality of the weld. That was founded by a PhD student that won the Walmsley Award, one of the top innovation awards that Ontario gives out, the Ontario Center of Excellence. Created a minimum viable product and traveled the world to sell it. So they had some investment from a strategic partner, but it was largely, let's make the product and go out and sell it to the world. They gained enough traction that they attracted the attention of a large multinational player in the space that acquired them, and they ended up wanting to keep them right in our town, Kingston, Ontario, as kind of a center of excellence type facility where the experts in the laser and the photonics will continue to support the project. So that's a nice beginning to end, but continues to be an important component for our ecosystem. When you think of green, clean technologies, and one of the priorities at Queen's is helping support a pathway to a low carbon future, in addition to things like health and astroparticle physics. These types of stories, I think, are the reason we can start building that critical mass of highly qualified individuals that want to tackle these important challenges in society. The second quick example I'll give you is another technology that was a collaboration between our office and another office at Queen's. We run a program that we call the Foundry Program. When researchers give us technologies in the technology transfer portfolio, we'll typically file patents on them and try and license them to bigger companies. In this case, under the Foundry Program, we'll actually make those technologies available to students going through a summer campus incubator program. So a cohort of about 40 students learn how to start a startup, but if they are interested, they can sort of bid on the technologies that the Tech Transfer Office is building. They need to do a pitch to the professor to convince the professor they should have a chance at it. And one a couple of years ago, before it formally became the Foundry Program, was a company called RockMass. A researcher had a technology that allowed, with a scanning device, allow miners to characterize the inside walls of the mine. The typical process had actually been a very manual process, so like with a protractor and slide rulers and things like that. They're a company called RockMass that now has 20 plus employees. That's a going concern, selling all over the world. So there's multiple ways interesting things can come out of the university, but the recipe is solid groundbreaking research, talented team members that want to make their own dent in the universe, and some of the supports around them.
Absolutely, and using that ecosystem, and once again tying into even what we're doing here today, right? Celebrating an ecosystem of people coming together and having these partners and having these conversations, because there are some wonderful, sharp minds out there. They just need to be in the same room at the same time to talk about some really good things, right?
It is. Proximity has been a theme of the discussions today, and only good things happen when you get smart, capable people in a room together. And it's where a little bit of serendipity can happen too. Like, oh, I knew that person. Something that goes beyond a simple LinkedIn search might be able to share with you, right? It's like, oh, I know somebody, I've heard of that. And that might not have appeared on their LinkedIn profile, but it ends up being a connection. So coming to the place where there's many successful tech companies, as Canadians, it can also help emerging student entrepreneurs, for example, understand what success looks like, right? So the big companies here at one stage all started out with a product they were on the road trying to sell, but understanding what the goalposts look like and what success can look like, it's important to have clusters like this at Hub350.
Yes, absolutely, and thank you for mentioning that, Jim. So I think just in conclusion, out of everything you've experienced, and it seems like you've had such a wonderful journey through all these aspects, and clearly it's still very exciting with everything that you're engaged with. Tips and tricks, tips that you would have, I would say tricks, there's no tricks, but really tips that you would have for for more entrepreneurs in this space in general?
I think most entrepreneurs, I would say, make sure you validate your business plan is a real problem in the world. Sometimes first-time entrepreneurs will come along and say, I've got this great idea for a new mousetrap. Turn that upside down. What is the problem you're solving? And make sure you go out and talk to 10, 20, 30 users that say, if you made me something that solved this problem, here, take my credit card. Mm-hmm. That's probably the biggest piece of advice is make sure you validate the problem in the marketplace. And if it's a real problem, you'll have a business. I mean, once you've got a problem, you need to make sure that it's big enough to have a business, but making sure you have a problem. So basically talking to your users, there's a group Y Combinator that says, for startups, you should be doing two things, is building your product and talking to your user and really not much else. Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of advice we give too.
And it seems like if you think about it, it can really be applied to any business for that matter, right?
Right.
And
that's right. Whether you become entrepreneurial or intrapreneurial,
yes.
A big corporation needs innovation in many ways, and so you can have a good career as an intrapreneur, even if you don't follow the path of your own startup.
Absolutely. Well, Jim, thank you so much. A fascinating discussion. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for joining us here at the Digital Media Lab at Hub350. We look forward to seeing you guys next time. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.